Welcome to the channel. Through her sobs, my mother-in-law told me my husband was dead and sent me to the airport to collect his body. Having forgotten my passport, I returned home and froze in horror at what I saw in our living room. That Sunday morning, the London humidity was already making its presence felt. I was sitting in a familiar coffee shop near my home, savoring a rare moment of peace. After a stressful week at work, the ice in my latte had almost melted, leaving cold condensation trickling down the glass. I watched the passers-by, my thoughts with Daniel. My husband had flown to Dubai 3 days ago on a business trip. He'd said this trip was crucial for his promotion, so I was anxious for him, hoping everything would go smoothly. Suddenly, the phone on the table vibrated, shattering the quiet. Brenda's name flashed on the screen. My heart skipped a beat. My mother-in-law rarely called me at this time, unless it was about money or to lecture me on being a poor wife. I took a deep breath, placing a hand on my chest to steady myself, and answered the call. From the other end came heart-wrenching sobs, so piercing that I had to pull the phone slightly away from my ear. "Amelia, darling, it's a tragedy. My boy, your husband, he's left us. Heavens, why am I being punished like this?" You was stunned. The glass nearly slipped from my hand. Trying to remain calm, I asked, "Brenda, please, calm down. What's happened to Dan? Tell me properly." Brenda continued to weep, her sobs mixed with cries. "Dan was in an accident in Dubai. They just called me. He's gone, Amelia. My only son is gone, dead in a foreign land." A ringing filled my ears. The world around me seemed to fall into a silent abyss. Dan, dead? But just last night he'd called to complain about the bland food. How could this have happened? I shot to my feet, my legs turning to jelly, the ground seeming to tilt beneath me. "Are you sure? How is that possible? He's on a business trip." "You're still asking questions," Brenda shrieked. "Do you think I'm lying to you? They told me. You have to fly there immediately to identify the body and sign the papers for the cremation. Go home, get your passport, and go straight to Heathrow. Hurry, or you won't even get to see your husband one last time." I had no strength to think. The terrible news was so sudden it had paralyzed my mind. The image of Daniel, lying cold in a foreign country, brought tears to my eyes. Despite the arguments we'd had in recent years, despite his weak character and the way he always listened to his mother, he was still my husband, the person closest to me. I quickly paid my bill and hailed a black cab. My mother-in-law's order echoed in my head. "Get to Dubai, now." Brenda had said her health was too fragile, that the news had sent her blood pressure soaring, and she couldn't possibly fly. And Paul, his brother, was supposedly busy and unreachable. The entire burden fell on my shoulders. Returning to our flat in Kensington, I flew into the bedroom like a whirlwind, haphazardly throwing a few things into a suitcase. My hands trembled, everything slipping from my grasp. I wept as I packed, whispering prayers that this was all a terrible mistake. But Brenda's sobs on the phone had been too real, her urgency too insistent to cling to false hope. I glanced around our bedroom, where the scent of Daniel's aftershave still lingered. Everything was just as it had been the day he left. And now, death had separated us. A wave of grief washed over me, making it hard to breathe. I zipped up the suitcase, slung my handbag over my shoulder, and ran out of the flat. There was only one goal in my mind: Heathrow Airport. I had to fly. I had to bring my husband home. The taxi sped down the M4 towards the airport. The driver, seeing my red-rimmed eyes and the way I clutched my bag, didn't dare ask questions, only trying to drive faster. The London traffic was particularly unbearable today. The cars barely crawled, and my heart burned with impatience. The phone rang again. It was Brenda. "Where are you? Are you at the airport yet?" Oh Lord, why me? Such a slow daughter-in-law, and my son is dead. If you're too late, and they cremate him without you, it will be a sin upon you and our whole family, Amelia. Her words cut like knives. Suppressing my hurt, I answered curtly, "I'm on my way to the airport. The traffic is awful. I'm trying to be as quick as I can." At Heathrow, I threw some cash at the driver and raced into the International Departures Hall with my suitcase. The noise and bustle of the airport were a stark contrast to my shattered soul. I scanned the departure board, searching for the next flight to Dubai. There was one in 2 hours. I had to hurry. I pushed through the crowd to the check-in desk. When the agent asked for my passport to issue the ticket, I confidently reached into my handbag and felt nothing. I flinched and rummaged through the entire bag. Lipstick, powder, wallet, keys, phone, everything was there, except for the most crucial document. I remembered frantically pulling it from the bedside drawer at home, but I must have left it right there on the side table when I reached for my phone charger. My face went pale. "Ma'am, do you have your passport?" the agent asked sympathetically. "We can't issue you a ticket without it." I stood frozen in the middle of the airport. This fatal oversight was a catastrophe. If I went back to Kensington for the passport now, I would definitely miss this flight. But without it, I couldn't leave. I wanted to tear my hair out, cursing my own absent-mindedness. At such a critical moment, with my husband waiting and my mother-in-law grieving, I had made such a stupid mistake. There was no other choice. I had to go back. I dejectedly dragged my suitcase back towards the taxi rank. My heart felt unbearably heavy. I imagined Brenda cursing me when she found out, calling me a useless woman who couldn't even see her husband off with dignity. I got into another taxi and whispered to the driver, "I need to go back to Regency Court in Kensington." The journey back felt like an eternity. The evening sun was setting, and the city was lighting up, but to me, everything was gray. I huddled in the back seat, fresh tears rolling down my cheeks. I felt sorry for Daniel and his short life, and sorry for myself, forced to bear this grief alone under a hailstorm of his family's reproaches. Arriving at our building, I paid the driver and wearily pulled my suitcase into the lobby. I planned to grab the passport and book a ticket on a late-night flight. I was prepared to spend the night at the airport if I had to. I couldn't leave Daniel there alone. The lift stopped on the 5th floor. I stepped out into the quiet corridor. The dim light cast long, ominous shadows. I walked to our flat door, fumbling in my bag for the keys. But to my surprise, when I touched the handle, the door swung slightly ajar. I started. I was certain I had locked it. Had I forgotten in my haste? Or was it burglars? A chill ran down my spine. I held my breath and cautiously pushed the door open. The lights inside were on, and what I saw made me freeze in place. The blood turned to ice in my veins. I stood rooted to the spot on the threshold, my hand gripping the suitcase handle so tightly my knuckles turned white. Before me was not a scene of mourning, not a sorrowful atmosphere, but a cozy little party right in our living room. Sprawled on the cream-colored sofa I had worked so hard to save for was Daniel. He was wearing silk pajamas, his face flushed and healthy, without the slightest sign of a man who had just been in a horrific accident, let alone one who was supposed to be dead. In his hand was a glass of red wine. Next to him sat Brenda, my mother-in-law, who had been sobbing so desperately into the phone just hours ago. Now, she was deftly peeling an apple, a wide smile on her face. "So, my boy, what did you think of my acting?" The moment I started wailing, Amelia bought it hook, line, and sinker. She's probably losing her mind at the airport right now. She offered a slice of apple to her son. Daniel opened his mouth, took the apple, and burst out laughing as he chewed. "You're the best, Mum. My wife is such a fool. She believes anything you tell her. Let her run around Dubai for a bit, looking for my corpse. When she can't find it and calls, I'll just have my phone switched off." Imagine the panic. I felt as if my chest was about to explode. A ringing filled my ears, but every word they spoke hammered in my head like a gavel. This was Daniel, my husband, and this was Brenda, the mother-in-law I had always tried to respect and tolerate. I pressed myself against the doorframe, trying not to make a sound. Instinct told me I had stumbled upon a monstrous performance, and I needed to hear everything before I revealed myself. Holding my breath, I carefully set down my suitcase, took out my phone, and with trembling hands switched on the voice recorder. In the room, the conversation between mother and son continued. They were completely oblivious to my presence. "Have you thought everything through?" Brenda asked, sipping her tea. "The power of attorney and the documents to re-register the flat need to be done quickly. While Amelia is gone for a few days, we'll sign this flat over to Paul. When she gets back, it'll be a done deal. The flat won't be hers anymore. She can take it to the high court for all I care." Daniel took another sip of wine, his tone dripping with contempt. "Don't worry, Mum. I've prepared everything. Forging her signature is child's play. Even though it's joint property, and her parents chipped in for half, I'm the primary owner on the deed. I can do what I want. Paul's getting married soon. Christine is from a wealthy family. How can he bring her home without a decent flat in London? We'll just sacrifice Amelia a little for his sake. What's the big deal?" Tears streamed down my face, no longer tears of grief, but of pure hatred. My parents, living in the countryside, had sold their holiday cottage and scraped together every penny to give me the money for this flat, hoping their daughter would have her own home in the capital. And now, these two were plotting to steal my parents' sweat and blood to provide for a lazy brother-in-law. And besides, Brenda added with a sniff, that Amelia is a fruitless tree. All these years married and her stomach is still flat. Hasn't given us a grandchild. Why keep a hen that doesn't lay eggs? As soon as we have the flat, divorce her. I'll find you someone better. Younger and prettier. Daniel nodded in agreement. You're right, Mum. I'm sick of her anyway. Always coming home from work with a sour face. I was just waiting until I'd squeezed all the money I could out of her. That's why I put up with it. I bit my lip until I tasted blood to keep from screaming. Rage ignited within me, scorching my soul. It turned out Daniel's weak character was just a mask. Beneath it hid a calculating, treacherous, and merciless man. They weren't just trying to trick me into going away. They wanted to steal our flat, throw me out on the street with nothing, and humiliate me and my parents. I glanced at my phone screen. The recording was over 5 minutes long. Enough. More than enough for irrefutable proof. I took a deep breath and wiped away my tears. The weak, grieving wife had died along with the fake news of her husband's death. In her place stood Amelia, a betrayed woman, ready to fight for justice. I grabbed the door handle and flung the door open with all my might. It crashed against the wall with a deafening bang that silenced the room filled with their deceitful laughter. How lovely. My husband is dead, and you're having a party. My voice was cold and sharp, cutting through their cheerful conversation. The atmosphere in the room froze instantly. The wine glass slipped from Daniel's hand and shattered on the tiled floor. The red wine pooled on the white surface like fresh blood, spilled from their arrogance. Daniel leaped up. His flushed face turned an ashen gray. He scrambled to his feet, knocking over a side table and spilling the tea. Brenda dropped her knife onto the plate, her eyes wide with shock. She stared at me as if she were seeing a ghost. I stood with my arms crossed, my sharp gaze fixed on the two actors in this pathetic play. "Amelia," Daniel stammered, trying to regain his composure. "When did you get back? Why didn't you call? Don't get the wrong idea. I wanted to surprise you." I burst out laughing, a bitter, scornful sound. Even now, he was trying to use his lying tongue to cover the ugly truth. A surprise? You wanted to surprise me by faking your own death, so your wife would go through hell, drop everything, and fly to Dubai to collect your body? Or is the surprise that you're sitting here drinking with your mother, while I was going out of my mind with grief? By now, Brenda had recovered. She quickly slipped back into her usual insolence, jumping up with her hands on her hips, her shrill voice cut through the air. "How dare you speak to your husband like that, Amelia? He came back early. You should be grateful. He just wanted to test your feelings, to see if you really loved him. And you, it turns out, are so petty. Instead of being happy, you stand here spewing venom." I looked at Brenda with disgust. Not only was she not ashamed, but she was trying to twist everything and make me the guilty one. But today, I was no longer the submissive Amelia, who only knew how to nod. "Don't you lecture me on morality. Testing my feelings? Who tests someone's feelings by tricking their wife into going abroad so they can forge documents and sell their home? Do you think I'm deaf? I heard you planning to sign this flat over to Paul for his wedding." Daniel's face contorted. He took a step towards me, reaching for my arm, but I stepped back. My cold stare made him freeze. "Amelia, listen to me. It's not what you think. Paul is getting married soon, and his fiancée's family insists he has his own flat. I'm his older brother. I have to take care of him. I just wanted to temporarily put the flat in his name so he could show it to her parents. As soon as everything was settled, I would have signed it right back to us. You're his sister-in-law. You should be willing to sacrifice for his happiness. I nearly gagged on his words. Temporarily sign it over to show them. How could he speak such a blatant lie? I knew the greed of this family all too well. The moment the name on the deed changed to Paul, I would never see this flat again. I would be thrown out onto the street. You have a way with words, Daniel. Sacrifice? Why should I sacrifice my parents' blood, sweat, and tears for your brother's vanity? My parents paid for half of this flat. What right do you have to dispose of it? And you dared to call me a fruitless tree, planning to kick me out and bring in someone else. Daniel froze. He hadn't expected me to have heard everything. Confusion flickered across his handsome, deceitful face. Brenda, seeing her son losing ground, leaped into the fray. Since you heard, I'll say it to your face. You've been in this house for 3 years, and your stomach is still flat. You can't give us an heir, which means you have no rights here. The flat is in my son's name. It's his right to give it to whomever he wants. If you're smart, you'll sign the papers, and maybe you'll get to stay his wife. If not, get out. Brenda's words were the last straw. They had torn off their masks, revealing their true, greedy, cruel, and contemptuous nature. I looked around the living room, once my cozy nest, now cold and alien. Their cunning plan to seize my property, cloaked in family ties and brotherly duty, was exposed. I knew the real battle was just beginning. I slowly took my phone out of my pocket and swiped the screen. What are you doing? Daniel frowned. Calling your parents to complain? You're a grown woman. Don't drag them into our problems. I didn't answer. I just pressed play. A clear, crisp sound filled the oppressive silence. When Amelia gets back, we'll have the documents finished and sign the flat over to Paul for his wedding. Brenda's triumphant voice echoed through the room. The color drained from her face, turning it from red to a deathly white. She lunged at me, trying to snatch the phone, but I stepped back, holding it high. Then came Daniel's voice. Don't worry, Mum. I've prepared everything. Forging her signature. We'll just sacrifice Amelia a little for his sake. What's the big deal? Daniel stood motionless. He understood the devastating power of that recording. It wasn't just proof of their immorality. It was legal evidence of conspiracy to commit fraud and seize property. I stopped the recording and looked him straight in the eye. Did you hear that, Daniel? You and your mother thought I was an idiot. Every word you said, every part of your plan, it's all recorded. This will be my evidence in court. Amelia, calm down, he stammered, his voice trembling. Let's talk about this like husband and wife. If you do this, you'll destroy me. Delete the recording, and I promise I won't sign over the flat. I swear. Your promises are worthless now, I interrupted. How can I be calm when my own husband faked his death to deceive me? How can we talk when you and your mother were discussing how to throw me out on the street? You didn't die, Daniel, but our marriage did. My words sounded like a death sentence for our rotten relationship. Brenda, seeing her son's resolve crumble, flew into a rage. You dare threaten my son with court? You ungrateful wretch. Just you try it. I bought this flat. I have a right to it. You're nobody here. Now give me that phone. She lunged at me like a wild animal, but Daniel managed to stop her. Unlike his mother, he understood just how dangerous that recording was. Mom, shut up! He yelled, and she fell silent. Turning to me, his tone became pleading. Amelia, I'm sorry. I was wrong. What do you want? I'll do anything, just don't make a scene. Let's start over. I looked at him with contempt. This man was willing to betray his wife for vanity, and now he was groveling, terrified of losing his reputation and property. It's too late, Daniel. There will be no starting over. I'm filing for divorce, and I'm taking back everything that belongs to me. Don't even dream of stealing another penny. With that, I turned and walked towards the bedroom. I could hear Brenda's screams and curses behind me, and Daniel's heavy sigh, but none of it hurt me anymore. My heart had turned to stone from their cruelty. It was time to act. I entered the bedroom, slammed the door shut, and locked it. From outside, I could hear Brenda's theatrics. wailing that her wicked daughter-in-law was trying to steal their home and kill her husband. The old me would have been terrified and come out to apologize. Today, I didn't care. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to think clearly. First, I canceled my flight booking. Then, I called Christopher. Chris had been my best friend since university and was now a well-known and successful lawyer in London. I knew he was the only one who could help me. "Chris, I need your help," I said, my voice fast and clear. "Daniel faked his death to trick me into leaving the country so he and his mother could steal our flat. I just caught them red-handed. I have a voice recording. I want to file for divorce and division of assets immediately." There was a moment of silence on the other end. "Are you serious, Amelia? This is incredibly serious. Where are you now? Are you safe?" "I'm at home, locked in the bedroom. I'm about to pack my things and leave. I can't stay here another minute." "Okay. Pack your most important personal items, your documents, savings, the deed to the flat. Do not get into an argument with them under any circumstances. I'll send my assistant to pick you up, or you can go to any hotel and send me the address. I'll come to you tomorrow morning, and we'll discuss a plan of action. And guard that recording with your life. It's your most powerful weapon." After hanging up, I felt a surge of confidence. I pulled out a large suitcase. I didn't bother with most of my clothes, setting aside all the gifts from Daniel. I opened the small safe. Thankfully, I had always kept our important documents myself. I took out the property deed, my personal savings accounts, our marriage certificate, and the jewelry my parents had given me for the wedding. I hid it all at the bottom of the suitcase. I changed into a smart business suit, tidied my hair, and applied fresh lipstick. The woman in the mirror no longer looked tormented and afraid. She looked determined and strong. Outside, Brenda was still screaming. "Open this door! Are you in there stealing my son's money to run off with your lover?" "I'm calling the police." I smirked. A guilty conscience needs no accuser. I zipped up the suitcase, grabbed my handbag, and unlocked the door. Stepping out with my head held high, I came face to face with them. "Where are you going?" Daniel asked, startled to see me dressed for business and with a suitcase. "Where I'm going is no longer your concern. From this moment on, we are separated. All further questions will be handled by my lawyer." Brenda lunged for my suitcase. "Don't you dare leave. What's in there? Open it. You've probably stolen our gold." "Get your hands off me," I said, my voice like ice. "These are my personal belongings and my property. If you touch me again, I will file a report for unlawful restraint and assault." My forcefulness made her recoil. I proudly dragged my suitcase towards the exit, leaving two stunned and furious people behind me. The door slammed shut, closing a chapter of my life filled with lies and suffering. I hadn't even made it to the lift when Daniel ran out into the corridor after me, Brenda scurrying behind, shouting abuse so loudly that neighbors started peeking out of their doors. "Amelia, stop! You can't take the deed to the flat. Give it back," Daniel yelled, all pretense of decency gone. A small crowd of neighbors was gathering. This was exactly what I needed. "Why do you want the deed?" "To sign the flat over to your brother." I spoke loudly and clearly. This flat was worth £1.2 million when we bought it. My parents sold their cottage and gave me £600,000. I have all the bank statements to prove it. Do you really think you have the right to just steal my parents' life savings?" Whispers rippled through the onlookers. "Goodness me. They seem like such a respectable family," one neighbor murmured. Turns out they were trying to swindle their daughter-in-law. "Poor Amelia. She's always so quiet. To think she married into a family like that." Hearing the gossip, Brenda's face turned purple with rage. "Don't listen to her. What money of hers? She married my son. Her money is our money. A wife should follow her husband. It's her duty to contribute to her husband's family. And now she wants to divorce him and run off with all the money, leaving my son with nothing. Brenda, it's the 21st century." I scoffed. "The law is the same for everyone. Assets acquired during a marriage are joint property, and especially since this money came from my parents, I have proof of its origin. I demand we sell the flat and split the money 50-50. Or you return my £600,000 plus compensation for the increase in property value." Amelia, let's not cause a scene. Daniel tried to reason with me. You know Paul needs the flat for his wedding. Just lend me the deed for a while. I'll give it back right after the wedding. Lend it to you so you can immediately re-register it? I cut him off. I don't trust you anymore. If you could fake your own death, you're capable of anything. I have the deed. I will be submitting it to the court to place a lien on the property. Until the court makes a decision, no one in your family will be able to do anything with this flat. And if I find out you've forged any documents, you'll go to prison, Daniel. At the word prison, Daniel went pale. Just then, the building's security guard, called by a neighbor, arrived. Please keep it down. This is a respectable building, not a marketplace. If you don't stop, I'll have to call the police. Brenda fell silent. Daniel, after shooting me a look of pure hatred, dragged his mother back into the flat and slammed the door. I thanked the guard and my neighbors and walked to the lift. The first round was mine. The next day, I was sitting in Christopher's office on the 20th floor of a skyscraper in Canary Wharf. Your documents are all in perfect order, Amelia, he said, having reviewed the papers. The joint deed, the bank transfers from your parents, and most importantly, this recording. I've listened to it carefully. The actions of Daniel and his mother fall under the Fraud Act, not to mention being a gross violation of family law. What's the next step? I asked. I'll prepare the divorce petition and an application for an immediate injunction on the flat. But first, we need to meet with them, so they understand the full severity of the consequences. This afternoon, my assistant and I will go there with you. At 2 p.m., we pulled up outside my building. I rang the bell. Daniel opened the door and was taken aback to see me with two men in suits. You again. You've brought strange men into my home. Chris stepped forward and handed him his business card. Good afternoon, Daniel. My name is Christopher Wolfe, and I am a solicitor. I represent the interests of my client, Amelia. I'm here to discuss some legal matters with you. May we come in? Daniel took the card with a trembling hand. Brenda was sitting in the living room. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris began, laying out documents on the coffee table. Based on the evidence provided by my client, including an audio recording of your conversation, we have sufficient grounds to initiate criminal proceedings against you for conspiracy to commit fraud, faking a death for deceptive purposes, and the unlawful alienation of property are serious offenses. Brenda's face contorted. Daniel broke out in a sweat. We were just joking, he stammered. A court will decide whether it was a joke or not, Chris said sharply. We have already filed for an injunction on the flat. Any attempt to sell or mortgage it will be illegal. I strongly advise you to seek a settlement. If you continue to threaten my client, we will refer this matter to the Crown Prosecution Service. Chris's professionalism and unyielding tone broke their resistance. Brenda sat with her head bowed. Daniel nodded shakily. He understood that the old Amelia was gone. Before him now was a formidable opponent with powerful legal backing. I decided not to stay in that flat a moment longer and collected my suitcase. Chris drove me to a 5-star hotel in the city center. Stay here for a few days and rest. It's on me for now. Don't go back to that flat alone. In their desperation, they might do something stupid. I blocked Daniel and Brenda's numbers. From now on, Chris was handling everything. The next morning, I woke up to a barrage of messages in the family WhatsApp group, ironically named the Happy Family. At 6 a.m., Brenda had sent out a heart-wrenching message. Good people, please help me. My daughter-in-law, Amelia, whom I loved like my own daughter, has gone completely off the rails. While my son was working hard on his business trip, she found herself a lover, a lawyer. I caught her, and she ran away from home and is now trying to steal Daniel's flat. She has slandered us and hired thugs to threaten me, an old woman. How am I supposed to live with such a snake for a daughter-in-law? Beneath the message was a covertly taken photo of me getting into Chris's car, angled to look like we were kissing. Immediately, comments from aunts and uncles flooded in. Good heavens, she seemed so quiet. Poor Brenda, warming a viper in her bosom. People like that should be kicked to the curb. My blood boiled. Brenda was a master manipulator. She was using the family's opinion to tarnish my name, but she had made a mistake. I calmly took screenshots of the entire conversation, then took that same audio recording and sent it to the group with a caption. "Dear family, please listen to this recording to the end, and then judge who the real snake is. A husband who fakes his own death to rob his wife, and a mother-in-law who helps him. The truth is here. If anyone requires legal proof, I will provide it." A dead silence fell over the group chat. 5 minutes later, the first person to write was Aunt Helen, the most respected and direct person in their family. "Brenda, how do you explain this? That is your voice and Daniel's. How could you stoop to something so vile? This is a disgrace to the whole family." Immediately, other messages poured in. "Daniel, you should be ashamed of yourself. A grown man stealing from his wife. And we believed Amelia had a lover. Turns out you were the ones deceiving her. Disgusting." Brenda tried to justify herself, but her pathetic words were drowned in a flood of accusations. Eventually, unable to bear the shame, she removed me from the group. But it didn't matter. I had exposed her to the entire family. That afternoon, Paul showed up at the hotel. "What have you done?" he snarled. "Because of your recording, Mum's blood pressure shot up. She fainted. Are you trying to kill her? Withdraw your complaint immediately and give back the flat documents. Christine will only marry me if I have a flat in London. You're ruining my future." "Your future is in your own hands," I replied coldly. "If you want to get married, go get a job and buy a flat. Why should I provide for you? What's it to you? You're rich," he spat. "Give us the flat, and I'll convince Daniel not to divorce you." I laughed. "No, thank you. I'm dreaming of a divorce, and you will not get the flat. And tell your brother and mother to prepare for court." He tried to grab me, but hotel security quickly restrained him and threw him out. The next day, Chris showed me new documents. They were Daniel's bank statements from the last 2 years. Every month, after receiving his salary, he had automatically transferred £4,000 to his mother's account. "But he told me his salary was only £4,000 a month," I whispered. "He gave me £1,000 for bills and kept the rest for his expenses. I was the one paying for most things and the mortgage." "He was lying to you," Chris said gently. "His actual income was closer to £8,000 a month. Over 2 years, he transferred almost £100,000 to his mother. She, in turn, invested that money into buying an off-plan flat in a new development called Riverside Quay, in Paul's name." I was speechless. They hadn't just wanted to steal our flat. For years, they had been siphoning money from our household budget to buy a flat for Paul. "This is the unlawful disposal of marital assets," Chris said. "We can demand that money back." "Chris, I know what to do," I said. I heard Paul bragging to his fiancée that he bought the flat himself. It's time to open her eyes. I drove to the sales office for Riverside Quay. Paul and his fiancée, Christine, were there, signing documents. "Paul, darling, buying such a big flat, and you didn't invite your sister-in-law to celebrate," I said loudly, walking up to their table. "Amelia, what are you doing here?" he stammered. "Christine, hello. I'm his older brother's wife." I laid the bank statements on the table. "And this is the proof that your fiancé is buying this flat with money stolen from my family. He's been unemployed for 3 years. Christine's face fell. "Paul, is this true? You told me you were a deputy director." "Don't listen to her. She's insane," he yelled. "See for yourself, Christine," I said. "All the transfers are from my husband to his mother, and from her to the developer. Do you want to marry a liar and a thief who lives off his brother and his wife?" Christine leaped to her feet, her face blazing with anger and shame. "You liar!" She slapped Paul across the face. "You told me you were a millionaire, but you were robbing your own family to impress me." She pulled the ring from her finger, threw it in his face, and after apologizing to me, she walked out with her head held high. Paul was left sitting on the floor, crushed and humiliated. That evening, all 3 of them came to my hotel. They put on a show in the lobby. Brenda threw herself at my feet, weeping. Daniel and Paul were on their knees, begging for forgiveness. "Stop the theatrics," I said coldly. "I don't believe you. Get ready for court." Then Brenda jumped up and started cursing me. I calmly asked security to call the police. The moment they heard the word police, they fled. 2 days later, Daniel struck again. He sent that same photo of me getting into Chris's car to all the work group chats at my company, with the caption, "Head of marketing cheats on her sick husband with her millionaire lover, and hires thugs to beat up her mother-in-law. Is she fit to be a manager?" A DOA. My director summoned me. "Amelia, I need an explanation." "It's slander," I replied calmly. "And I can prove it. Allow me to call an emergency meeting." In the packed conference room, I projected all my evidence onto the big screen: the registration for Chris's car, my marital status, that damning audio recording, the bank statements proving the theft, and screenshots of the threats from Daniel. When the recording finished, the room erupted in applause. My colleagues hugged me, and my director publicly apologized and promised his full support. The day of the court hearing arrived. Daniel and his family looked pathetic and defeated. Their lawyer tried to appeal to pity and tradition, but he stood no chance against Chris's irrefutable evidence. The judge delivered the verdict. Our marriage was dissolved. The flat was to be divided, but due to Daniel's fraudulent actions and his fault in the breakdown of the marriage, I was awarded 70% of its value. Furthermore, the court ordered him to repay the £96,000 he had stolen, which was deducted from his share. In the end, after all the deductions, he was left with almost nothing. I became the sole legal owner of the flat. Daniel's family dejectedly left the courtroom. He cast one last look at me, full of belated remorse. I turned away coldly. 6 months passed. I sold that flat, full of bad memories. With the money, I bought a smaller house in a quiet, green neighborhood and opened my own flower shop, the Quiet Haven. A dream from my youth. My life became calm and happy. Chris often visited, and something more than friendship was beginning to blossom between us. One evening, I was watering the flowers outside my shop. An old, battered moped pulled up to the curb. The rider, in a faded food delivery uniform, was greedily eating a dry pastry. I froze. I recognized him. It was Daniel. He looked 10 years older, gaunt, with dark circles under his eyes. I had heard that after the divorce, he was fired from his job because of the scandal. Paul had gotten into deep debt and was hiding from creditors. Brenda had suffered a minor stroke and had moved to the countryside, living on the pittance Daniel sent her. He looked up, and our eyes met. The piece of pastry fell from his hand. Shame and humiliation were written all over his grimy face. He quickly started the moped and sped away, as if fleeing from his own past. I watched him go, feeling no anger or satisfaction. Only peace. They had gotten what they deserved. And I was reborn. I walked back into my shop, enveloped by the scent of flowers. The evening sun filtered through the leaves. I smiled and took a deep breath of the air of freedom. Life was beautiful, and my real happiness was just beginning.